Welcome to the Tyneside Irish Cultural Society podcast with me, Michael McNally. Hi everyone, and welcome to our September podcast. Well, quite a lot has happened since last month. The North East has been put into semi-lockdown by the government. It's a bit of a confusing time. I understand that I can go to the pub, I can go to the restaurant as long as I socially distance and I'm with a member of my own household or someone from my bubble. I can go to work, we can go to school, we can do a lot of things. We can go play organised sport. But if you're a grandparent, you can't see your grandchildren, which seems quite odd. I know we've got to protect the elderly who are vulnerable, but if you're fit and healthy, surely you should be able to look after yourself and make positive decisions and see your own family. I can't even go and see my mum and dad. Can't even stand in the garden and wave at them. It seems ridiculous. However, we've got to see the funny side of things. And just the other day, I went walking in Amble, Northumberland, and there's a pub called the Harper Inn. And I saw this sign outside the pub. I've got it here. I just printed that off. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll read it for you. And it says, due to COVID-19, Sweet Caroline is banned. There will be no touching hands, reaching out, touching me, or touching you. And that tickled me a little bit. Anyway, we've got an interesting show lined up for you this month. We've got some fantastic guests, and hopefully we'll give you lots of information on what's going on around the region and tremendous opportunities available for you to get involved in and engaged in. So without further ado, here we go. Now, are you aware of the fantastic classes which are available, provided by the Tyneside Irish Cultural Society? I've got a fantastic guest, Barbara Flynn, who's going to tell us a little bit about what's on offer. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Michael, and thanks for inviting me on today. It's very kind of you, because I would love really to make sure people do know and are aware of the courses that we've got on offer starting next week. Some people might have this, the Irish Community News, and this is issue 7. And the double page spread in the middle tells everybody everything that they need to know. Basically, we've got 3 courses that we've put onto Zoom. You know, prior to this, Michael, before COVID, obviously we had more courses, but they can't all go easily onto Zoom. So we're just taking it step by step. And what we've got is we've got Graham Hutchinson, who's delivering 4 levels in Irish language. So he's got on a Monday, beginners and intermediate classes, and on a Wednesday, elementary and post beginners. So there's something there for everybody, whatever the level they're at. And do you know, some people want to really start from scratch, and others have learnt at school and they've got quite a lot of background Irish. So there is something for everybody. And Graham is a great teacher. He's hugely popular. You know, people love the classes. So we're writing today to everybody who's been on any of those courses and reminding them that we're going ahead this next week for the beginning of the term. That we've also got on Thursdays, we've got David Burke, who I know that you're going to talk to later. And David is our medieval history tutor, and he's been with us for about a year. And he started off in the centre and had a group in the centre, but he moved to Zoom in probably April, actually. And in April, it went down really well because, you know, obviously it means that people can join in from anywhere in the world. So it is, you know, it highlights an opportunity that we've never had before, basically. And he's offering 2 courses because they've been so popular. He's offering 2 different ones. And so let me read them. The first one is A History of Ireland from St. Patrick to Cromwell. So I think that's the kind of more the basic course, if you like. And then that runs at 4:30 on a Thursday. And at 5:30 on a Thursday, the second one is called Thematic Focus, the Irish Diaspora and Irish Texts in Context. A little bit more complex there. And, you know, for people who've maybe got a background of having studied some Irish history. Again, you know, David's got a lovely style, and people love they just love listening to his lectures because he's he's quite good at kind of little anecdotes, throwing in little asides and things. And I think people find not just them very informative, but, dead entertaining as well. So they're very popular. And then after that, we've got on a Thursday, and this is in the evening, this is 7:30, we've got Gemma, who is an accordion player, Gemma Telfer, and she's started probably where are we now? Almost a year ago, yeah. So she's been with us a year. But it's like an intermediate level mixed instrument session. Hugely popular class. Hopefully more people will turn up. And I think I forgot to mention that the Irish language courses are running at exactly the same times as they always did, which is 6:15 to 7:15 for the beginners on a Monday and for the elementary on a Wednesday. And then the intermediate, 7:30 to 8:30 on a Monday, and the post-beginners, 7:30 to 8:30 on a Wednesday. So, we're trying to stick with what's familiar to people.
There's a whole range of things there for people to get involved in.
There is.
If someone perhaps hasn't been involved or engaged in any of this before,
yeah,
what's the point of contact for them? Just very simply, how do they get involved?
If they haven't heard anything about it before, the thing to do is probably to write to me at the tyneirishcs@gmail.com email address, and I can pick up any of their queries there and then I can pass on their names and things to the tutors involved and sort out any issues. For example, anybody wanting to do the Irish the Irish language, they might need to talk to Graham first and establish which level they're going to enter at.
And it's a pleasure now to have a chat with one of the people she mentioned there, David Burke. Hi, David. How are you doing?
Hello there. I'm not too bad. How are things?
Very good. Thanks, David. David, would you like to tell us a little bit about what you're doing for the Tyneside Irish Cultural Society?
Yes, of course. So essentially, I'm running a short history course covering the history of Ireland from roughly the time of St. Patrick to roughly the time of Cromwell and the conquests. And it will be looking at the kind of golden age of Irish history, where the stereotypical era of saints and scholars, but then also moving into the Viking invasions, the Norman invasions, the Tudor conquest, and the Cromwellian conquest. And then in parallel to this, there's also a second course, which is looking at broader themes, so things like the Irish diaspora, how the Irish travelled all over the world and impacted various other cultures. So looking at the diaspora in their context, but then also looking at actual texts written by people. So looking at the letters of St. Patrick and discussing them in class. Looking at tourists from like the 1300s and 1400s who came to Ireland and how they travelled around and what they saw. And so it's kind of looking at the Irish who went abroad and then the people from abroad who came to Ireland and what they saw.
Sounds absolutely fascinating. How did you get involved with the Irish Centre?
I attended one or two of their events, and I saw how engaged both the teachers and the students were, and I just found that to be very encouraging. And at the time, my teaching at Durham University had concluded, and I was looking for another avenue to teach. And I just saw the kind of the perfect storm almost of a community who looked engaged, and something that I could bring to them, where my PhD is in Irish history, and I have a community of people who are interested in Irish history. So it just kind of made sense to go, hey, would you like me to teach some Irish history?
Now, I know that you've got followers and students coming in from all over the world.
Yeah, the recent Zoom term was surprisingly global. There was three or four people from America turned up. One or two people from Ireland. In fairness, one of them was a family member, so I don't think they should count. And then a few people from around the UK as well. Yeah,
it's just good to know that we've got such an amazing offer there for people to get involved in, to research history and to learn from someone like yourself. So thank you very much on behalf of everyone with the Tyneside Irish community, and it's lovely to talk to you, David. Thank you very much for giving us some of your time.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. It's been really nice speaking to you too.
An interesting thing happened to me on Sunday. I was doing my usual gig at the lakeside in Jarrow, and it's called Jarrow Tapas. And I bumped into a guy who used to go to my old school, St. Joseph's in Heaven. We got chatting about about Jarrow and why it is that people who are from Jarrow seem to be so proud of where they come from. And I just thought, I've got to talk about this with someone who's an expert. And I immediately thought of Tom Kelly, our local writer, historian, all-round talented man. And I'm really pleased to say he's agreed to take part in our podcast. So hi, Tom, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Michael. It's lovely to see you.
See you. You're looking very well, Tom. And can I just say, you know, I know that you're a bit of an expert on the Irish links to Jarrow. And could you just tell us a little bit about why, for example, it's called Little Ireland?
I think that the simple answer is that a third of the population from the 19th century onward, 1830s, 1840s, were from Irish stock. In my case, from the Kelly side, from Kilkenny, and they found their way to Jarrow via Dundee. They worked in the jute mills in Dundee, and then came down to Jarrow, worked in the shipyards. And on the other side of the family, the Cumston side of the family came from Galway, and they worked in the shipyards. And so, because Charles Mark Palmer, the famous shipyard from 1851 to 1833, he advertised in Ireland for Irish men to come over and work. So there was that support there right from the beginning. And so he supported home rule, whether it was because of purely capitalistic reasons that he wanted a workforce, or whether he really believed that, I'm not sure. But essentially, so a high proportion of Jarrow people have an Irish connection. That if you go to the library now, it's awash with people wanting to know the origin. And I think that it's, you know, genealogy is like the new sort of god. It used to, at one time, was rock and roll, and now it's genealogy. And I think people are much more interested in where they came from, and you know something about the heritage. It's got a crucial, so that the Irish connection is like really a big thing now. You know, the people. My niece has just had an email from someone in Australia who's her fourth cousin. You know, this is the kind of thing that happens now more and more so. Last year, the year before rather, we went over to Galway to a little place called Clonbar, which is where my great-grandfather came from at the end of the 19th century. And we went there. My granny could never afford to go. So in a sense, we were going for her. And so we went to Clonbar, this little place, and there's like a little pub come bar. And this woman says to Linda, she was there with a couple of kids before she went to school. She said, now why did you here? And I said, oh, well, my family came from Clonbar, or Clonbur, depending how you pronounce it. And she said, well, go and speak to Kieran in the corner there. So I went over to see this guy called Kieran, and he was sitting there, and he was like, you know, your archetypal sort of expert on. He says, now, what's your family name? I says, it's Cumsky. I says, this is where they came from. He says, no, this was their postal address. He says, where they came from was 2 miles up the road. They had a little farmstead there, he says. And he says, if you want to go and see them, get yourself to the cemetery. So that was, you know, it felt really kind of very nice in a sense that this touchstone, this lobestone had been to where my great father, Thomas Cumsky, had left. You know, as you know, there wasn't one famine, there was several famines, and they came to Jarrow. Then what they felt, what they must have felt, and that featured in a poem called Thomas Cumsky, which is in the new poetry collection called "This Small Patch," and it's about how he must have felt. I've sort of tried to get myself into his head.
The way you're describing it is with such a passion. It's very personal, and of course, that is, I think, what came across to me in the conversation I had with the man just at the weekend, that there is a bond between people. Now, is that to do with the hardship of the famine and people coming over, working hard to survive in a new land?
Yeah, I think that certainly at the beginning, you know, you find that with any sort of group of people, whether it be the Poles. I mean, there's a lot of Polish people that have lived in the Northeast more recently, and they bind together for obvious reasons. And I think, you know, the Catholic Church was very important at that particular time. They helped to build St. Bede's Church in Jarrow there. And that feeling that you were all in the same boat together, and that they would live in the hut and the lodging houses. And generally those lodging houses were in Stanley Street. And that's where the Kelly side, the family lived in Stanley Street in Jarrow. And if you look, my Uncle Johnny was on the Jarrow Crusade, and if you look at the men who organised or were behind the march, they're all immigrants, Scullion, Riley, they're all, it doesn't take a lot of working out to realise that they were behind that, and that feeling of solidarity was very much like that. And it's like when you move away yourself, you go down to London, and you live there, and you're the outsider, and you seek friends of a like mind and a like sort of outlook on life in order to feel comfortable. Lots of people went through very hard times. That if you work in the shipyard, it wasn't deemed to be a permanent job. And shipyard workers always complained about they couldn't get a mortgage because they weren't in full-time permanent employment. Parma, to some extent, tried to remedy that. So, for example, the houses in Beatburn Road and around that area were owned by the kind of foreman that lived that worked in Parma's, and he sort of vouched for them in a sense to have a mortgage, and that was really unusual at that time. This is my great grandfather. This is my sort of the maternal side of the family, Thomas Comiskey. I'm with my great grandfather, Thomas Comiskey, 1866, 1944, looking for work and lodgings in Jarrow. He's uncertain on these paved paths, joining men spitting down Ellison Street to Parma shipyard, wearing sturdy boots cobbled by his father the day he left Galway, working with the riveters, noise as hell. The fields of Clonbar he would love to cup in his hands, hold silence he dreams of carrying. Geordie voices confuse. He deals and nods and smiles, dragging riveters' hammers on decks of marooned boats. Today he wants to be home. There is a hole where family should be. The foreman knows an Irish face when he sees one, calls him Paddy.
Yes.
So this is the Thomas Comiskey I sought in Galway and Clonbar. So the poem is quite obviously about him and the way that some people would view him at that time, and lots of Irish people. So that there was that need, near desperation, to bond together in order to survive.
Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure as always talking to you, and
it's been lovely seeing you. And I hope the project really works, and all my love to your mum and dad and the rest of the family, and of course to all the people who are watching this. And let's hope that this pandemic ends sooner rather than later.
Tom Kelly, thank you very much. All the very best. Love to your family. Take care. Well, it's been raining for the past 5-6 hours, and I went out this morning, had a little run, 10 miles. I got home and I was drained and feeling quite down. I was desperate to find someone of note to perform some music for us in this podcast. And I'm absolutely over the moon. My day's starting to brighten up because I know she's on the other end of this line. And we've got the sensational Úna Ní Fhlannagáin. And Una, how are you doing?
Oh, Michael, thanks so much for those kind words. If I managed to cheer you up after 10 miles in the rain, I must be doing something right. So thank you.
That's without even playing, absolutely amazing. Now, you've played with some amazing artists, I know. And could you just tell us a little bit about, we haven't got a great deal of time, but a little bit about some of the sensational musicians you've worked with.
Okay, so I was really lucky when I was in college, and I won a scholarship to a university called Wesleyan in America. And there's a guy there who is probably only known to jazz aficionados, but he is an utter genius, like literally, because he won this thing called the MacArthur Fellowship Grant, which is kind of informally known as the Genius Grant. They just give, I think it's something like $250,000 to a person they think is really changing the shape of their domain. So this trumpeter, saxophonist, Anthony Braxton, is an amazing central part of jazz history. And he won the MacArthur Fellowship, and he lectured in Wesleyan, and he was just such a privilege to be around. And he gave me some advice which I will never forget, which was he composed really, really technically difficult music. Like it would have like time signatures like 13/8 and then going into different time signatures, so it was complexities upon complexities, and it was totally chromatic. So just to be honest, to a layman, it just probably sounded like, you know, like computer gone wrong. But it was really, really cool to listen to. And when you were listening to it live, it was a totally immersive experience. And I used to stress out because the harp here, not a very chromatic instrument. It can do some sharps and flats, but it's a bit of a challenge. So he'd just say, Una, don't worry. Just try and get the notes. And if you can't get the notes, try and get the rhythms. And if you can't get the rhythms, just try and get the dynamics.
Sounds amazing.
So, yeah, it was just amazing advice. And I've taken it everywhere I go. If I can't get the notes, I just try and get the rhythm. And if I can't get the rhythm, I'm just like, okay, let's be loud at the right place and soft at the right place.
Now, how have you been coping with lockdown?
I have to say I've had a weird experience. Most people find their social circle dwindled, but mine was the total opposite. I had put this year aside for recording, and I have a gift of some recording gear from my very dear student cousin, Dara, and I basically was waking up in the morning on my own and spending the whole day on my own, and then getting to see my partner at around like 6 or 7 o'clock every evening, and that was it. And then lockdown happened. My partner, who works in IT, has been working from home. So I'm actually getting a 1000% increase in human contact, and I love it. I didn't realize until now I was so isolated. So I consider myself extremely lucky. Obviously it has its challenges, but for me anyway, I really learned that before now. I was actually a bit too much on my own, so it's good.
How has it impacted on your performing and playing?
Oh, hugely. So like I had a particular recording plan geared towards touring and performance, and sure, that's out the window. And I haven't yet come up with a plan B, Michael. So like, you know, I'm figuring my way out towards it, but it is definitely a time of change and of reflection and of what the heck am I gonna do? But you know what? I'm just 90% of the time concentrating the fact that there is food on the table, there is a roof over my head, I live in a social welfare state, which I'm now really appreciating. And I'm just trying to do everything I can every waking hour I have that I can. So I'm recording, I'm brainstorming, I'm writing. And hopefully my prayer for myself is that I'll just manage to stay at the grind so that when things return to normal, which I hope they will, and there is some performance, that I'll still be there standing and I'll still be playing music, and I'll be able to come over to you guys and play some gorgeous tunes for you yet again.
we would absolutely love that. And what are you going to play for us today?
I'm going to play a piece of music that I composed for my mother. My car, this funny story will hopefully cheer you up. So I was walking along the beach. Actually, I was running along the beach. I too run. You should come to the beach sometime. We could be running buddies, Michael.
That sounds fantastic. I was actually running on the beach this morning in South Shields. That's
there you go. See, the sand is great for your feet, isn't it? As opposed to the hard concrete. Yeah. So anyway, so I was running on Salt Hill, and didn't I lose my keys? And I went to the Gardaí and I was like, look, I'm really sorry, but is there any chance somebody's handed in a pair of black car keys? And the inspector just looked at me and was like, sorry, no luck. I was like, oh. He must have seen my crestfallen face, and he just goes, look, go down to the car park, stand beside your car, and I'll send 2 lads down to help you. It's like, okay. I didn't know what that meant, but I just followed his orders. And I went down and I stand beside my car, which was a trusty 99 Toyota Corolla called Betsy.
Fantastic car.
And these 2 Gardaí show up, and they just come straight over to me and they go, right, which car do you want us to break into? And I was so tempted to be like, oh, this 2020 red BMW. Which is also in the car park. But no, I restrained myself. And they were incredibly kind to me. They broke into my car. I got my phone, I got my wallet. When you get your phone, when you're in trouble, what do? You call your mammy. They rang my mammy. I was like, Mammy, can you drive me home to get my spare keys? And she came, as she always does. And I'm just so grateful to her. I'm grateful to all parents who do their best. Nobody's perfect, but we all do our best. And grateful for people who show up for you when you've lost your keys. And so I composed this. Her name is Anya, and this is called Anya's Air.
Absolutely beautiful.
In Tyneside.
Your mother must be so proud of you.
Only when I do my homework and I do the wash up. That's all.
Una, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you and listening to you. It's honestly, you've made my day. Thank you so much. And
thank you so
I
much.
see you playing over here in the near future. Okay.
And thank you for the excuse to get out of my pajamas and talk to somebody. It's been so exciting. I've now talked to 2 people today, you and my partner. I mean, like, party.
Thank you, Una. Well, that's all we have time for this month. So all the very best to everyone. Stay safe. And we look forward to seeing you in October.